Jon Jones put out a video and he's lifting some kind of a weight. I couldn't tell if he was getting ready to do a squat. He was on like a squat rack or deadlifts. He does a lot of deadlifts. And 240 pounds, and says he should be ready to fight in the next couple of months, make his heavyweight debut. Okay. Can he debut at heavyweight in the next couple of months? That would be one question. I don't know. I'm not against it. We've just been told that when he moves to heavyweight, he will get an instant title shot. And the heavyweight title fight, which is next, which is Stipe versus Francis, is looking like March. So Jon would have nobody to fight unless he's not going to fight for the championship. And Jon's never said it has to be a championship match. Never. That was said for Jon that it would be, or that he would qualify. I only bring that to you because I like Jon as a contender. I would never argue with him being in a championship match. I just think there's a couple of fights at heavyweight that could be interesting, but it would require a contendership. Right? Of course, we'd like to see him and Stipe, by example, of course. But there's some other matches you'd like to see him do. Volkov got called out specifically by Anthony Smith. Said, I think that's a hard fight for Jon stylistically because of the reach, because of the range, because of the stand-up fighting. I think Curtis Blades would be fun, personally. I think Curtis Blades would be very fun. So I only bring that to you because if all these things happen at once, right? And that's why a fighter always thinks they have some kind of control, but it's also why they can't have control. You just can't control when the opportunity is going to come, which is where the message, always be ready, comes into mind. But Jon's saying, I need a few months. I'm looking at it going, even if you're ready in a few months, it doesn't look as though those dates are going to line up unless something's about to happen between Francis and Stipe that we've yet to be revealed. Now, I think you chalk that one up to Jon just making a statement. It doesn't have to be factually correct or well thought out, and maybe I overthought it. I would have another question, though, that I would be very interested in, which if he weighs 240 pounds, how did he get that way? There was a piece that I took in on YouTube with Coach Greg, professional, I don't know what they call it, IBF. You get paid professionally to walk on stage in almost no clothes and flex your muscles. One of those guys. And he said, man, there's not a physiologist out there. There's not anybody in the history of powerlifting or dieting that could explain how Jon Jones weighs 240 pounds and looks like that in 3 months. And I would tell you, as I lifted weights my whole life, might be the only exercise that I enjoy. The only one that I would actually look forward to going to. The rest I just did out of discipline. But I like to lift weights. And boy, gaining weight is as hard as losing weight. In some ways harder. My senior year of high school, I wrestled at a weight class, 185 pounds. But I weighed 173 pounds. And I chose 185, was just sure I was going to lift all this weights. And there was something out there called Ensure. Ensure's still on the market today, but it was new then. Comes in a little bottle, you pull the cap off, you drink. You're supposed to get all these minerals and vitamins and proteins. And I will tell you, particularly at that time in my life, I went into GNC. I bought everything they've ever had at some point in my life on the off chance that it would work. It never did. But oh my goodness, the protein shakes and how much you had to drink. And my mother used to make pancakes. And she'd take this big, it was like a bucket. It had a handle on it, but it was this great big, I mean, it can massive amounts of, you could put 5 gallons in this thing. And that's what she'd put the batter in and she'd mix it and the whole family come over. Biggest stirring pot that we had. I used to have to make my daily amount of protein in that. And then you had to drink it each day with the hope of looking like the guy on the cover. I only bring this to you because this is over half of my life ago. It still makes my stomach sick. I still remember that uncomfortableness and the pain. It's 173 pounds, trying to get to 185, eating as much as I possibly could, lifting like a maniac. The state tournament rolled around and I weighed 173 pounds. I did not gain a single pound. It's calories in to calories out. So if you're training 2 and 3 times a day, there's only so much food that you can eat to ever make sure that more calories are coming in. Now, Jon does not train very hard. His teammates and his coaches will tell, we don't see Jon. He doesn't work out very much. So, okay, he might have an advantage with the calories at that point. But even picking up something heavy and putting it down for 3 months, There's no amount of food that you can eat. This is according to the coach on the internet. I'm paraphrasing him, but I'm also sharing. I've studied this my entire life. I've written books on this very topic. You cannot gain that kind of weight only in muscle. Your body would gain weight in every possible way. It would put on water weight. It would put on fat. It would put on some muscle. You then have to trim that down and hope that you had more muscle than fat. It's one of those things. It simply can't be done. But Jon put on 15 pounds of absolute steel. That can't be done according to physiology. Jon will be the first human in the history of the species to gain 15 pounds of muscle by doing deadlifts in his garage a couple times a day for 3 months. Before any of you think I'm also now coming out and trying to hint a sign that Jon is back on the gas, he's still in the pool. So physiology says you cannot gain 15 pounds of steel in 90 days, no matter what you're doing, even if you have a poor work ethic like Jon. Set that aside. Let's say he worked out hard. Physiology says you can't do it. He's not on the gas. He's not. He's in the pool. He's falling straight. You've got the caveat unless he learned something new. And there's a lot of guys that learn something new, right? The eye test when USADA got involved versus the eye test today doesn't pan out. And USADA knows that, and USADA agrees with me on that. But that's not the way it works. The science has to catch up. And I'm really not suggesting for you, even in a backhanded way, that Jon's back to his old tricks. I'm not. Moreover, he's just a very special athlete. It would be the first time in the history of the human species that a guy could deadlift a few times in his garage and gain 15 pounds of muscle in 90 days. But it's also very interesting because the biggest fight out there and the one that a lot of pieces are getting put into motion to make happen is Jon Jones versus Izzy at 205 for the world championship. So Jon's pulling one way and then he's got to come back down, man. It's one of these things that's very baffling and confusing. Oh, and by the way, I should say in full disclosure, I'm only as good as the information that's put out. Information was put out by Jon. I don't have any proof that he weighs 240. I mean, this could be a whole thing, right? Jon broke up rioters. Jon had a home intruder. Jon is squatting 1,000 pounds and weighs 240. I mean, he says things. It's the internet. You say things. You can be a 6'5" man or a 5'6" woman. You can do whatever you want on the internet. Elvis Presley's still alive, and so JFK Jr. I mean, it's one of those things. But if we are to look at the information that's given us, this is odd. At best, this is odd. This is the first time in the history of the world. At best. At best. Guy gained 15 pounds hitting deadlifts without a t-shirt on in his garage a couple of times a week in 3 months. That is fiction.